Everyone, welcome back. This is David. Today we're going to talk about conditionals. As we have mentioned earlier when talking about Boolean data type, conditionals are very important for the execution of the programs. We can take a look at 3 different kinds of conditional structures in Python and how they are used when writing a program. So the first one is the simple if statement, which looks like something on the right. The way that the program execute the if statement is to first evaluate the Boolean expression within the if statement. If this expression evaluates to true, the program would then execute the following block, so the statements 1 in this case. And then after it finishes, it would goes to statements. It would continue execute the program. So in this case, statements 2. And in the other case, if the expression evaluates to false, it will simply skip the statements 1 and then go directly to statements 2. So the second form would be an if-else statement by adding an else statement after the if statement. So the program execute is similar to if statements. It first evaluates the Boolean expression. If the expression evaluates to true, the program executes the statements 1 block, and then it executes the statements 3 block. If the expression evaluates to false, the program executes the statements 2 block, and then execute the statements 3 block. So these 2 statements never get executed within the same run. By comparing this if-else statement and the if statement, we would notice that the else statement is an optional in the conditionals. So we only add an else statement when we want something to be executed when the expression evaluates to false. In the case of not having an else statement, we simply do nothing and then skip. And the last one is an if-elif-else statement. In one of these statements, there can be 0 to multiple elif statement. When there isn't one elif statement, this is the same as an if-else statement. So if we simply remove this statement, it is the same as the if-else, like the last slide. And there can also be many elif statements, but all of the elif statements have to be within if and else. So it can be if, elif, 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 and then followed by an else in the end. So the way that we execute this block, this statement, is to first evaluate the Boolean expression 1. And then if the Boolean expression 1 evaluates true, we do statements 1 and then statements 4. If the expression 1 evaluates to false, we then evaluate the expression 2. If this expression 2 evaluates to true, we do statements 2 and then statements 4. If there are more elif statements, we would evaluate the next expression and then check if that evaluates to true or not. But in this case, if both of these statements evaluate to false, we would go to else statement and then execute statements 3 and statements 4. So similar to if and if-else statement, the else part in this is also optional, meaning it can only have if and elifs. So let's take a look at how we can write conditionals in Python. The first function we are going to write is called absolute value, which takes in a number. If the number is less than 0, we simply we negate the number. And then if the number is greater than 0, we simply return it. Absolute value is a type Python built-in function, but we are just rewriting it to show you how conditionals work in Python. So we have a function called abs, and then it takes in 1 parameter. And the one way we can do it is to check if x is less than 0. If it's less than 0, we negate the number. If it's not less than 0, we do nothing. And then return x in the end, no matter what. So the way we can write it is to write if x less than 0, we do x equals to negative x. So in this way, we have negated x. And then we can return x in the end. So let's try if it works properly. We can do absolute value -1 and absolute value -101.234. And we can also try if positive works. We can try absolute value of 5. It should return 5. So we can execute the program and then see if it gets us the correct result or not. So let's check. The absolute value of 1 is 1. The absolute value of 101.234 is 101.234. The absolute value of 5 is 5. So it seems like we got the correct results. There's also one way that we can add in the else statement in this case. We can add else and then do x equals x, which is same as do nothing, but that's one way of writing if and else. Let's run it and see, yeah, they still yield the same correct result. So we can write it in another way. We can write if x is greater than 0, greater or equal to 0, we simply let it return x. And then otherwise, we let it return negative x. In this case, we never assign the negative x back to x. We simply return the negative x when x is smaller than 0. Let's execute the program and then see if it yields the same result or not. We still got the same result, so this is a correct program as well. There are also other ways we can write it. One trick in the if statement is when we only have one statement after the if conditional, we can simply put it right behind if or the else. We can do something similar to that. It wouldn't be wrong. It would still get us the same result, but we can put two statements after the if. So we can do something like return x and then return x plus 1, for example. We can do something like that. It would be an indentation error because when there are multiple statements after the if, we have to put it within a block, indented in the same way. So let's write another function to show the if, elif, and else function. What this function does is to return grade, is to find grade, let's call it, find grade of x. So we can give it a number from 0 to 100. If it is greater than 90, it will be an A. If it's in a range of 80 to 90, it would be an B. If it's in a range of 70 to 80, it would be a C. If it's between 60 and 70, it would be a D. And below 60, it would be F, meaning fail. So let's write it. Find grade takes in one parameter x, which is the grade. And then we can check, we can first check if the grade is less than 0 or if it's less than 0 or x is greater than 100. In this case, we have invalid input. We would print invalid parameter. And elif x is greater than or equal to 90, we do return Oh, we can do print. We can simply, this function can simply print everything without returning anything. We can simply print A, and if x is greater than or equal to 80, we can print B. Notice that we don't have to do this. We don't have to do x is greater than or equal to 80 and x is less than 90, because when we execute this line, we the function has already processed this line, meaning that if we can reach this line, x has to be less than 90. So we don't have to put this line right here. And then if x is greater than or equal to 70, print C. Now if x is greater than or equal to 60, print D. Oh, not S, D. Else print F. Let's call this function. We can call find grade when it's let's try some invalid number first. 102, that is invalid, and find grade 95. It should be an A. Find grade 78, and maybe try find grade 45 as well. Let's try if all of those yield us the correct result. In the first case, it is an invalid parameter because it's out of the range. In the second case, it's an A. It got into here because it's greater than 90 and less than 100. In the third case, it evaluates to false in this line, and then it evaluates to false in this line too, and then it evaluates to false in this line, and then it reaches here. X is equal to or less than 70. Oh, less than x is greater than or equal to 70. Evaluates to true, so it prints C. And then in the last case, everything above evaluates to false. So if it falls within the else statement, it print F. So these are the three kinds of conditionals that are often used in Python. Please try those out on your own, and then now we can write some more complex, more complicated program in Python.